It's just about 6:30, so if we can get started here, so that we're not running too late. Deputy Clerk Schulteis, would you read the preamble for us, please?
Thank you, Mayor. In accordance with the applicable statutes of the State of Illinois and ordinances of the City of Prospect Heights, notice is hereby given that the City Council Workshop hybrid meeting of the Mayor and City Council of the City of Prospect Heights is being held on Monday, September 12, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. in person at the City Council Chambers, Prospect Heights City Hall, 8 North Elmhurst Road, Prospect Heights, Illinois, and simulcast on Zoom, acting Mayor Matthew Dolick presiding. This meeting will be broadcast live on the following cable channels: Comcast and WOW Channel 17 and AT&T UVerse Channel 99. It will also be recorded and televised on Comcast and WOW Channel 17 and AT&T UVerse Channel 99. Attendees who wish to speak on agenda or non-agenda items will be provided an opportunity during the meeting. There's a 5-minute time limit for speakers.
All right, thank you. At this time, I'd like to call to order the City Council Workshop hybrid meeting at 6:31 p.m. on Monday, September 12th, 2022. Madam Clerk, could we have a roll call to establish a quorum, please?
Yes, hello. Good evening, everyone. Alderman Dash.
Here.
Alderman Ludvigson.
Here.
Alderman Cameron.
Here.
Alderman Dolick.
Here.
Alderman Morgan Adams.
Here.
All right, all 5 of us are here, so we do have a quorum. Should we stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance, please? All right, thank you. The first item is the approval of minutes from the August 22nd, 2022 City Council regular meeting. Could I have a motion to approve?
So moved, Morgan Adams. Second, Cameron.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any corrections? There being none, could I have a roll call, please?
Alderman Morgan Adams.
Aye.
Alderman Dolick.
Aye.
Alderman Cameron.
Aye.
Alderman Ludvigson.
Aye.
Alderman Dash.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. There are no presentations nor appointments this evening. Are there any public comments on agenda items? Has anyone registered, or does anyone wish to speak?
No one has registered. Thank you.
All right, there is no consent agenda, but we do have old business, item 8A. Staff memo, an ordinance for the sale of surplus property. This is a second reading. We discussed this last week. Does anyone have any comments? Could I have a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion. Second, Morgan Adams.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. If there are no additional comments, could we have a roll call, please?
Alderman Dolick.
Aye.
Alderman Cameron.
Aye.
Alderman Dash.
Aye.
Alderman Morgan Adams.
Aye.
Alderman Ludvigson.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Item 8B is a staff memo and ordinance approving a special use permit to allow a sit-down restaurant at Bropa Grill, located at 5 South Wolf Road in Prospect Heights. This is the second reading. First, could I have a motion to approve?
So moved, Morgan Adams. Second.
We have a motion and a second. I'll open it up for discussion. We did discuss this at the last meeting. Does anyone have any comments or questions for either the owners or for Director Peterson? If there are none, could I have a roll call, please?
Alderman Dash.
Aye.
Alderman Ludvigson.
Aye.
Alderman Cameron.
Aye.
Alderman Morgan Adams.
Aye.
Alderman Dolick.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Congratulations. Thank you.
Welcome.
Brings us to new business, item 9A, staff memo and ordinance updating Title 12, fines and fee schedule to include recently passed ordinance changes. This is a first reading, but Administrator Wade, if you'd like to expand on this.
Oh, sure. This is basically a housekeeping ordinance. The fines and fee ordinance provides a one-source document for the city's fees and fines. There's a couple of additions that we're making with the water rate increase, as well as the escrow, a couple other items. This is a way to have a centralized area for our citizens as well as staff as to what the appropriate fines and fees are. And it's just first reading tonight.
Thank you, Joe. Are there any comments or questions from any of the members of the council? And as Joe mentioned, this is a first reading only, so no action is taken this evening. Brings us to item 9B, staff memo and ordinance proposing an increase in the city's imposed gas tax in accordance with the state of Illinois regulations. This too is a first reading, but it was asked that it be on the agenda tonight. Again, Joe, if you'd like to expand on the...
Sure, thank you. Recently, the state of Illinois, state legislature authorized non-home rule communities to have a local gasoline tax of 1 to 3 cents. For several years, it's been, for many years, it's been available to home rule communities at a rate higher than that. As you know, as a non-home rule community, the city does not levy a property tax for general fund purposes. We do it within the allowable limits of a marginal amount for police pension funds, and also what comes from the, by referendum, the bond issue, the debt payment for street improvements. So we're somewhat at a disadvantage, so when issues like this come up, we have to take a hard look. As a non-home rule community, we don't have that large stable revenue source. We look for a number of other options, smaller options. If the city council is interested, this is available to the city. Certainly, all of you that have sat through our budget processes know that there are uses for the money, whether it's just general operational issues, pension funding, certainly capital improvements, stormwater, and so forth. We do have a person registered, was not able to be here tonight. He's picking his mother up at the airport, but Mr. Peter Schutz of the Wolf and Palatine Mobile asked that this be read into the record, otherwise he would have been here. I would like to thank Prospect Heights Village Board for the opportunity to address the pending issue of the motor fuel tax levy. As a Prospect Heights businessman for over 40 years, I understand the need to increase village revenue. As a non-home rule community, it has been suggested to increase the gasoline tax by 1 to 3 cents per gallon. I would like to address this issue. As the owner of one of the few gas stations in Prospect Heights, that increase may and most likely will have a negative rather than positive effect to my business. As a gas station, we must post our prices outside for drivers to see and compare to our competition. This also gives the potential customers the opportunity to go outside the village to make their purchases. This loss of business also impacts the sales of merchandise within the station. And as an example, when Cook County levied an impressive extra sales tax on cigarettes, our sales went from 250 to 300 packs per day to 20 to 30 packs per day. Imagine that annual loss. Wheeling, for instance, as an adjacent community, has not instituted this additional motor fuel tax. As you drive further north, you can enter Lake County, which offers a lower gas price. These outside community purchases would have a negative impact on Prospect Heights' bottom line. I believe that our community needs to find ways to keep all purchases within the village. Our gasoline sales profit is minimal due to the influx of gas prices, which change daily. With nearly 100 businesses in Prospect Heights, wouldn't an annual increase in business license, for instance, be more equitable and have the desired effect in the village coffers? This would not be an issue if our community was not within throwing distance of the next county. But because we are potential customers have the option to make that drive, hence the loss of income to Prospect Heights. Although it is imperative to keep a business within our community, it is also essential to not burden one type of business. Why not look at other sources to increase the village bottom line? I believe the creative minds within our village can suggest other ways to increase income without singling out one business type. I therefore respectfully request that the Village of Prospect Heights not institute this burdensome tax on your local gas stations. Thank you for your consideration on this very important issue. And that's the dilemma as a non-home rule community. We kind of live off of revenues that are available and do not have that larger, broader base, which may be at a reduced level, but because it's over a larger base, that property taxes might avail us. So that's the dilemma for the city council. Bob Tannehill has done a little bit of forecasting, depending on whether it's certainly there's the option of no tax. 1 cent probably is about $30,000 per year. 2 cents is $60,000 a year. At 3 cents, we are not recommending. The staff is not recommending it. We're certainly sensitive to Mr. Schutz's business concerns as well. So,
Thank you, Joe. And before I open it up for discussion, just for clarification, I believe it was noted that if we wanted to implement this in January, it would need to be decided this month. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Rough time frame?
It has to be done ready by October to be implemented in January.
Okay. And as was mentioned, our choices are a 1 cent, 2 cent, 3 cent gas tax or nothing at all. At this time, I'd like to open it up for discussion if anyone wants to make some comments regarding this.
I guess I'll start. Alderman Morgan Adams. You know, I've looked at this issue, and under the circumstances, I mean, I understand Mr. Schutz's concerns, but I think that a 2 cent gas tax would not overly burden the city or the customers, and quite frankly, they're not the tax is not even listed on the signs for the gas stations. So I don't think 2 cents per gallon is a burden to anybody. So I would be in favor of a 2 cent per gallon gas tax. I just think it's certainly revenue that we need. I don't think it's burdensome to the extent that it's Mr. Schutz is making it seem, and I think that it would work in the city and not. I don't think it would actually drive customers away.
Thank you. Anyone else? Go ahead.
Yes, I mean, unfortunately, being a non-home rule community, we're limited in our ability to raise revenue. If you look at our budget, we have, I don't know if it's an unusual amount, but we have a lot of what I'd call one-off taxes that we're allowed to do because, between off-track betting to video gaming to what else is there? The sports book tax. We have a non-home rule sales tax that was passed. We have our regular sales tax. We get every tax that we seem to live on as a city always comes from outside sources. Other towns, when they're all high and mighty saying, well, we don't charge a gas tax, are hitting you up for a property tax, which we don't do. So, unfortunately, we don't make the rules in Springfield, but we have to try and survive by them. And I do agree that this is a good way to address our revenue is through this tax, which will not be paid all by Prospect Heights residents. And that's what we hear all the time is that, we want to try and maximize what we get from out of town transient people through town to limit the amount that our residents pay. So I like it. I do have a hard time with the fact that we are in very difficult times. This money won't really, make too much of a difference for us in 1 year. Over the life of the city, it's important because it's something we can count on once instituted or once put in place. But, maybe, it's not the best of time to do it right now because of how hard times are. I agree with, Alderman Morgan Adams saying that it's not a huge impact. You're talking 2 cents a gallon. Most people are putting, even when you're filling up 25 gallons max, you're talking 50 cents a fill up. It's at the end of the world. No, I mean, the state lowered their taxes, but it would not on gas and on food. So, we're not following suit by them, but nor did we get, $1 billion of COVID relief money either. So, we're very limited. It's hard. It's a hard one for me to decide to do right now because I do think that, we should show some kind of heart to say, hey, the times are tough. Let's not increase our income by charging us fees. But, we just agreed to increase our fees. We're going to. We just passed it, or we just had the first reading of a fee increase or rate increase on other items. So I do think we have to, operate long-term. So I would be in favor of doing it, but I do see where timing might be off, but it has to come eventually.
Anyone else?
I mean, for all the reasons that we've heard tonight, I would support a 2-cent tax that would go to the city. I mean, there's 6 gas stations in town. Only 1 gas station owner took the time to, write with our concerns. And again, being a non-home rule community, unfortunately, we have to make these kinds of tough decisions.
For myself, I think I, like most people, tend to get gas at pretty much the same place all the time when my tank starts running low. I don't think it'll change the habits of many people. And again, being non-home rule does make it difficult for us. Again, this is a first reading only, just open for discussion. We're not taking any action now, but just one other item for clarification. If we do not do this at this time, we have the option to do it at a later date.
Oh, yes.
Okay. All right, are there any other comments on this? All right, thank you. Again, this is a first reading.
One other thing I want
Yes.
to add to is that, the fact that if we do this tax, I mean, as you indicated, we have the option to do another date. We also have an option, I believe, and tell me if I'm wrong, we have an option to do away with it as well if we decide. Inflation is not going to go away next year. It's probably going to, well, I can't say for sure what's going to happen. Obviously, I don't have a crystal ball, but I mean, the inflation issue, people are still filling up. It's not deterring people from driving. From what I understand, the gas prices have been coming down. So, I mean, again, for all the reasons that have been cited by everyone, and our being a non-home rule community relies on this kind of revenue to support our city and the services that we are able to provide. I think it's something that I think that we should seriously consider.
So is this going to be an item on the next agenda for a vote?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
That'll be the second reading, and it'll be up
Perfect.
for a vote.
I'd like to also hear from our other aldermen, their opinions on this as well. I think Ms. Cameron, you're the only one who hasn't spoken.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, with us, being a non-home rule, I mean, this would benefit the city. We're trying to, try to generate as much funds as possible, and if we're able to do it, let's go ahead and do it. And like you said, if we can possibly reverse it, down the line, then that's a good opportunity, to take it away if need be. But it would definitely benefit the city.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Just a quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just looking at, because we got these budget handouts today, and I just looked really quick at the revenue. We have $556,000 in this year's approved budget in collection of real estate taxes. I don't know how many municipalities you have that have a $556,000 real estate tax as a municipality. Can you count them on no hands? One hand?
One.
Prospect Heights? But of our $3.3 million of revenue between all the other, like, local taxes we do, the property tax is $556,000. So, we are spreading it to outside. There's at least a dozen taxes here that people from outside our community pay. This would just make that one more, and I think it's the right thing to do.
All right, anyone else? All right, as was mentioned, this will be on the next meeting's agenda for a vote, and we can have more discussion then if we wish. That brings us to item 10, staff and elected officials. I would like to start by acknowledging that yesterday was the 21st anniversary of the terrorist attacks on September 11th, 2001. It was a terrible day for the nation, and we still remember this every year. Many lives were lost, especially first responders, when the planes hit the Twin Towers in New York City, as well as the Pentagon, and then the plane
Recording in progress.
and the plane crash in Pennsylvania. As a matter of fact, I went to high school with a woman who was killed at the Pentagon. So it's something that really has affected a lot of people, and I just want to acknowledge that, that we remember that day. For the rest of the elected officials, we'll start with Alderman Michelle Cameron, Ward 1.
I'd like to ditto that for 9/11. A lot of lives have been lost, and condolences to the family, but also there's still firemen and policemen that are dying to this day, from that far out. So I have no report, but I do want to say is that I want to thank Police Chief and everybody that helped out with the fire that happened a couple weeks ago in Willow Heights. Everybody that came together and to help the community and try to find, places for the residents to go and try to get everything organized. Dan, you did a wonderful job, and I wanted to thank you, especially you put everything together, and Peter and Mayor Dolick. So, thank you.
Thank you. Ward 2, Pat Lovickson.
No report. Thank you.
Ward 3, Wendy Morgan Adams.
I ditto your remarks on 9/11, and also want to thank police, fire department, and our city staff for the great work they did with the Willow Heights fire. And I'm pleased that I was able to help coordinate with the Red Cross and the Park District an opportunity for shelter for the 32 displaced families. I think this shows that the city can come together when they need to, and it just impresses me how great a city we are, that we work together so well. So thank you to everybody. I would also want to mention that I had a great opportunity to tour the police department and its operations and facilities with Chief Campanegro Thursday, and I was really impressed with the work he's been doing with his department and his officers. And we have a really great police department. I'm really proud to be living in a city with a police department which has a great chief and is well organized as ours is. And I'm very, very not only proud, but I'm very grateful for it.
Thank you. Ward 4, Danielle Dash.
No report.
Thank you. I have no additional report. City Treasurer Rich Tibbetts.
No report, Mayor.
Thank you. And our City Clerk, Joanna Prushiashnik.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to make that the state is accepting applications from homeowners for grants of up to $30,000 to eliminate or reduce past due mortgage and property tax payments. The Illinois Homeowner Assistance Fund Program will provide direct financial assistance to prevent mortgage delinquencies, defaults, displacements, and foreclosures for income-eligible homeowners experiencing pandemic-related hardships. That website is www.illinoishousinghhelp.org, and that will also be in our e-newsletter as a reminder. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Other officials, City Administrator Joe Wade,
No report, thank you.
Assistant Administrator Peter Falcone,
No report, Mr. Mayor.
Assistant Finance Director Bob Tannehill.
I have no report, but I did hang out the budget books for everybody. I want to thank all the staff for all the hard work they put into this. They get the book together and provide you guys copies.
Thank you. Director of Building and Development, Mr. Peterson.
Thank you very much, Mayor Dolick and City Council. Two quick items. First of all, it was a big team effort again at the Willow Heights situation the end of last month, and the police, the social worker, fire department, our staff, both internally in the field, in City Hall and in the field, came together, and it really came together well. As a follow-up, I've been working closely with the insurance companies and the fire investigation team. At this point in time, they're in the process of doing structural plans to try and get permits in. They're also doing system assessments to see if there's any parts of the building that we can get reoccupied as quickly as possible. As I get more information or we get closer, I'll keep everybody informed. So I appreciate the kind words. I'm happy to, I'm sad and happy. The first sad announcement is Code Enforcement Officer Mike Porzicki, who everyone on this council has known for years and has given many years of service both as a part-time police officer, part-time code enforcement, and then the last 6 years as a full-time code enforcement. His last day in his retirement was Friday. So he's already down on the island enjoying, no rest for Mike. But that gives us another opportunity. And tonight I'd like to introduce to the council Gonzalo Sainz. He's our new code enforcement officer. Gonzalo comes from UL Laboratories, where he was a construction team member and on the UL firefighting team. So he's got a great background. He's been able to work with Mike closely for the last 3 weeks or month, and he's already hit the street running on his own today. So we're very happy to have Gonzalo here. So I just wanted to introduce him to the council. And with that, that'll be my report tonight, sir.
Thank you, Dan. Public Works Director Mark Roscoe.
Thank you, Mayor Dolick. Couple quick things. One of the biggest projects we've had going in a long time is this Arlington Countryside stormwater program. So I just want to give you the update. As many of you have seen, Camp McDonald Road is being cleaned up. The installation of the pipe, as we talked about last meeting, was completed. Sod and pavement repair are next on the list for what you'll see along Camp McDonald Road. At the pump site itself, the next steps are Commonwealth Edison putting in commercial power, and Metropolitan Industries will be working on getting the pumps and the control panel in place. That's a point where we've hit a little bit of a snag with supply line issues. Metropolitan, their plan was to be by the end of this month. I think we're going to be pushed back 30 or 60 days. They haven't been able to give us a definite on the pumps yet, but they understand that it's a priority for us to get it done. Luckily for us, we're not moving into the springtime weather, so everything along track, other than the pumps, is right on schedule. Boulder Construction is wrapping up nicely with what they've done. So more to follow on the next meeting or two as to where we're at. We had the police department and fire department dealt with a motor vehicle accident a couple weeks ago along our levee wall. We've had a couple questions recently this week about the accident and the cleanup. There's oil and transmission fluid on the wall. Our crews are going to be out there to clean the wall in the next week, so it doesn't look as bad, but there will be sections of wall out there that will be replaced. Unfortunately, it's going to take a while to get it done. The process will have to be engineered and put out to bid, and we're probably looking at I would guess at best, late winter, early spring, unless we push it back a little bit, depending on the season. So for the questions out there, one, we are going to do some cleanup work on the wall to make it more appealing. IDOT is working on getting the guardrail replaced. So that's kind of where all that falls into play. And on a good, solid, positive note, Glenbrook South High School has a Service Over Self program. They contacted us midweek that they were going to do some work for an elderly resident of Prospect Heights with their youth on Saturday, landscaping cleanup. They were interested in getting some assistance with yard waste. Short notice for us, but timing for them was great. Due to the Labor Day holiday, all of our typical yard waste and refuse pickup by Flood Brothers was pushed back to Saturday. They got in there with their team of students and assistants, and they did a big cleanup on this resident's property. Flood Brothers was able to pick up almost all of their debris by the time they got around to that neighborhood on Saturday. So timing was great. Our Public Works crew went out and picked up the remaining debris that was left over on Monday, actually this morning. And the resident was thrilled to have all the support from the high school kids and the community. So that's a nice positive thing. Mr. Mayor, that's all I have tonight.
All right, thank you, sir. That is good news. I like to see organizations getting out there like that. Deputy Police Chief Milo Derman.
Thank you, Mayor. On behalf of the Police Department, I just want to say thank you to all the council members for the support of the Police Department. It really makes our job a lot easier. We invite everybody, as Alderwoman Morgan Adams came to the Police Department, we invite all the members to come and tour the Police Department and even go on a ride-along. Which brings me to my next point. We are running the Citizens Police Academy this fall. It's starting at the 26th of September and going through the November 28th. It's a police academy that's offered every year in the fall. You get to tour the police department, Northwest Central Dispatch, partake in classes such as DUI, DEA, domestic terrorism, use of force, taser, arrest tactics, investigations, and a lot of our specialty teams. This year we've introduced a couple new topics to include self-defense and first aid for civilians. We invite everybody, citizens of Prospect Heights and all the council members to join and sign up. The deadline is September 20th. It's Monday nights at 6:30. And finally, 2 more points. Officer Gutierrez and Officer Tiravolos graduated the police academy and are doing a fine job in field training. They are expected to graduate in beginning first week of November. Finally, we recently hired a new lateral entry police officer, Officer Collazo, from the Northeastern University Police Department. His swearing-in is September 20th, and he's to begin training the next day for a couple months, after which he'll be ready to go on the street on his own. That's all.
Thank you, sir. Deputy Clerk Karen Schulteis.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple, one thing, actually. Anybody interested in running for public office and the election that's coming up, all of the elected positions will expire in 2023, or consolidated general election will be April 4th, 2023. And if you want any information, we suggest that you go to the Cook County Clerk to get all the information there. We cannot provide information to individual residents or anybody looking to run. Thanks.
Thank you. Attorney John O'Driscoll.
No report.
Thank you. Digital Communications Technician Patrick Colvin.
No report, thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. That brings us to discussion topics. This is a workshop meeting. The first is the conclusion of the discussion of the City of Prospect Heights quarterly newsletter. And we have a number of items to discuss, and I do want this to be the conclusion of this, but I'm open for hoping that everyone has some discussion on this to be contributing to this. Some of the items include the length of the newsletter, advertising, as well as if we want other department heads to add articles for this. Treasurer Tibbetts, you're welcome to come out here if you wish. I know Rich had some bullet point items that he wanted addressed, and we have discussed this in the past, but we do need to draw to a conclusion here. If anyone wants to start off this discussion, you're more than welcome to do so.
I'll start, Alderman Morgan Adams. One of the issues that was raised had to do with whether elected officials could or should solicit for advertising for the newsletter. And I had some discussions with Mayor Dolick this afternoon as well on this subject. So I have no problem with elected officials talking to businesses, you know, about the fact that we have an opportunity available for them to advertise. Whether or not people should be called and solicited as just a regular solicitation, that may be a different issue. But certainly, I don't think it's a conflict of interest for the treasurer and the city clerk to do that if they if they want to do that. I understand that our treasurer has indulged in that and believes that to be appropriate. So in any event, I don't think it's conflict of interest in general to discuss it. I don't know that the aldermen, because they do vote, should actually go out and technically call on businesses to solicit them per se, but certainly discussing the issue with businesses is not a problem, I don't think. I don't believe it's conflict at all.
Okay, thank you. On that note, Mr. Falcone, can you just refresh for everyone what we typically do to make it known to businesses that advertising is available, whether they initially request a business license or so forth, but I'll let you.
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor. Staff, because we are so small, we work great together. So whenever a new business comes in and goes through the business process, they meet with Dan Peterson in the building department. And one of the things Dan does and his department does that's fantastic is after he gets all the nuts and bolts for their permits and building plans and all that, and they start moving forward to where they could open their doors, Dan informs the new business of the opportunities that they have available to them. As we all know, Mayor Helmer loved his ribbon cuttings, so that was always an option. That is still an option we provide to people, and the AV department does a fantastic job of those presentations. But Dan also gives them my information if they want to advertise in the newsletter. So that's the new businesses coming in. So we hit every single new business when they come in, so they at least know the options they have. As far as existing businesses, when I took over the newsletter in 2015 when I came here, the first thing I did was get a list of our businesses and do what I would call a soft sale. And that's usually what I do about once a year is I have a list of contacts from the building department, and I simply email out a mass email with all the email addresses blind carbon copied. And I just simply let them know, listen, if you're interested in advertising in the city newsletter, I have the exact language that's more professional, but I let them know that there's an opportunity for them if they wish to. I've done fairly well with that. I mean, I can't really say we're gonna get more than one page of advertising. If we did go to a more forceful campaign, that would be possible. I just didn't feel comfortable with that. I also didn't feel comfortable when I first started to go door to door to these businesses because it can come across as heavy-handed. These businesses rely upon us, and we heard from one business owner just earlier in the meeting. They do rely upon us for their livelihood. So when someone goes in and kind of says, hey, if you want to advertise in the newsletter, it's available, in the back of that person's mind, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but it just could be a perception that person would say, okay, here's somebody from the city telling me I should do something. I'm reliant upon them for my liquor license, my business license, whatever license we may have. And we all hear the horrible stories of, big cities and inspectors passing things, with a little money on the side. We always want to be above reproach. So we always want to make sure that when we reach out to our businesses, that it's an opportunity for them, not a requirement.
Thank you. Just one quick comment on that, and then I'll open it up for others. I like the idea of that mass email, letting people know, as well as new businesses when they come in applying for a license, that it is made known to them. Like Mayor Helmer, I'm a big fan of the ribbon cuttings. I would hope that we continue to do those. That's big free advertising on the cable access channel. Personally, I love to see that kind of thing, but I would like to limit it to that. In my opinion, anyone, whether it's staff or elected officials, to solicit directly, whether it's over the phone or in person at the business, to directly solicit, I think is a bad idea. And it can be kind of viewed upon as, well, if I want my liquor license or if I want my license extended, I have to kind of play along. I hesitate to use the term pay to play. That may be a little bit too strong of a term, but that's the way it can be perceived. And so my opinion is I would like to keep it as is with the mass emailing, new business information. That's my opinion. I would love to hear from each of the other aldermen how they feel about that one item here, and we'll go on from there.
Well,
Alderman Cameron?
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I wouldn't expect any of us to go to the business and get someone to try to, do an advertisement. But, if it's, conversation, if you're in there or whatever, I've done it once, but I never pressured anybody. But yeah, I mean, I would say the emails and, and if anybody's interested, they can always contact the city hall, and get it, but not to pressure them, do cold calling or whatever and get them to do advertisements. Absolutely not.
Alderman Ludwigson?
Yes, I'm just looking at the budget that we got today, and that line item is in the revenue, so I'm assuming the $5,500 that we have in there for newsletter advertising is correct. This year we had 9,000 actual for the previous year, and then prior to that it was 3,500 for 2021 budget, and the actual was a little over 5,000. I don't even want to go where Peter goes with the potential of people feeling pressure to get an ad. We should never have that. This is not Chicago. We shouldn't even have that kind of appearance of doing that. But I don't even look at it from the standpoint of, we could get more revenue if we went out, even if we double a $5,000 item, that's $10,000. When we're talking about what we should be concentrating on, with the gas tax that we just talked about, all Peter has to do, or actually the finance department has to do, is cash a check or the receipt of an electronic fund transfer of that money. The $5,000 that we're going to take in advertising, if we were to do this, to me is probably $20,000 of lost potential work that Peter could be doing or somebody else could be doing. The idea that we're going to have our second person in charge at City Hall, who's the acting administrator when our administrator's not here, be the guy out there trying to hustle up some additional revenue in advertising is just insane. I don't even know why we're having this discussion. The lost opportunity on that $5,000 is 3, 4, 5 times that. If people want to advertise, they come in and we generate $3,500, $5,000 a year from that, that's great. Helps offset costs. But the idea to go out and try and collect or sell more ads is just, I'm not for that. Whether we continue on with the newsletter the way it is or not, I would not be in favor. I would vote against if it was an individual vote of having us go out to solicit this. Nor do I think that the alderman or any elected official should do that, because the appearance is not good. It's not something that we should be doing.
Thank you. Alderman Dash? Any opinion on?
I certainly don't have the resources to solicit businesses for advertising. I think what we're doing right now is it's a win-win, right? We have some we're helping our local businesses who've decided to advertise with us, you know, have a platform, while generating, obviously, a small amount of revenue for the city. So I think it's a win-win. And, again, so I don't have resources to promote that program, and again, don't think that we should allocate resources from our staff to be doing it either.
Wendy, I think we understood your opinion, but do you have anything else you want to add?
I just wanted to make sure that I was clear about the fact that I'm not suggesting, and I think I said it, I'm not suggesting that any of the aldermen go out and solicit from the businesses and put pressure on anyone. That's not what I was suggesting. Particularly with the aldermen, certainly if an opportunity arises where there's a discussion and to make a business aware, if it comes up, an opportunity, that's what I said, I think that's appropriate. I'm not suggesting, and I don't, just clear, not suggesting that the aldermen go and solicit any businesses for advertising and on a hard sale, ever. I don't have a problem with, as I said, a non-voting entity. I'm not asking also, and clarify this as well, that the staff expend more expenditure of time to solicit business from, solicit advertising from the businesses either. So I just want to make that clear. My point is I didn't have a problem with our city treasurer or our city clerk going out and doing some soft sale, meaning making businesses aware and being a little more maybe out there. But again, I don't ever advocate hard pressure sales. I don't advocate it under any circumstances by anybody in any one of us, whether it be staff or any of the elected officials. So I want to make it clear that I am not suggesting that anybody put pressure on any businesses to advertise.
Okay, thank you. I do want to just settle these bullet point items one at a time. My opinion is that we should do no more than what is currently being done, that Mr. Falcone elaborated on, as far as I think it's wonderful to let businesses know, both new businesses and existing businesses, know that advertising is available. My opinion is that the optics of any staff or elected official, not just aldermen, but other elected officials, including our treasurer or clerk, should be going directly to businesses or over the phone. And I just want to kind of get that settled as far as how we feel about that. I understand, Pat, you're in agreement with that.
Crystal clear.
Alderman Cameron,
Yes, I am.
Alderman Dash.
Agree.
So-
Agree, my
so-
microphone is off.
Your microphone is on?
I have it on now.
Oh.
I agree.
So again, I mean, I don't support pressuring or hard sales by any elected official, but I don't object to elected officials discussing the issue and the opportunity, and I don't object to particularly our city treasurer and our clerk discussing these issues in detail with businesses, but again, not on a hard pressure basis.
Understood. Okay, these discussion topics are not something that we actually take an official vote on, but it's my understanding that the majority feels that we should not do any more solicitation than what we are already doing. Are we in agreement on that?
I just want to say something. I
Sure.
mean, everybody, there's an element of free speech here. I mean, if you're in a business, I'm not suggesting that if a business is saying they're not doing well and they like to know what they could do to possibly improve their business, that it couldn't be mentioned. And I don't want the takeaway to be that we as elected officials cannot bring it up, because I think it's appropriate to bring it up as an opportunity. And if business is interested, and just because a business may have come in and got the information when they first started, they may not have been in a position to even deal with that issue at the time, and then maybe later on, have a need, but not realize the opportunities that are available. So again, I mean, distinguishing this, it might be a fine line in some respects. So I'm not discouraging free speech. That I want to be clear about.
I understand. Peter Falcone?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much, if I may. The way I look at it is, it would be the same as a business coming in and speaking with Dan. If it was ever brought up, if you ever went to a restaurant or a business here, and I'm sure you all do, we all do, patronize our businesses, and if you say, hey, how you doing, how's business? And they said, oh, I wish it could be better. And if they ever bring up advertising to you, or bring up, they want to put more people in, the simple response would be, to keep you guys insulated, or in this situation, would be say, well, why don't you call Peter Falcone, the Assistant City Administrator at the city? There's advertising options available for you. It's that simple. I'll give you each
Right.
a couple dozen of my business cards, and you can hand them out like candy. All they need to do is come, if you just let them know, reach out to Peter if you got advertising questions. That completely isolates you, and it comes right to staff, and it's the same procedure that we're using now for the building department. So this way, you're helping out the businesses who have advertising needs and have questions, yet you're not putting yourself in the situation where you may feel like you strong-armed somebody into doing something they didn't want to do. So,
Thank you. And that too, I'm fine with that. I didn't come prepared to address a freedom of speech issue here. That's not in my area of expertise. But my point was, just like Peter said, yes, if you're in a business and you're buying a meal there or whatever, and you're engaged in a conversation, that's one thing. And you're right, this is kind of a gray area. My point is going to a business with the sole intent of trying to sell advertising.
I understand.
That would be inappropriate, in my opinion. So I'm not trying to stifle anyone from having a conversation with a business owner. That's not my point.
Okay.
Treasurer Tippett, you wanted to say something?
I really didn't intend to come out here and talk about this, but considering the fact that my name was used a couple of times, I felt that I needed to come and clarify a few things. One is, I never talked about strong-arming a business into buying an ad in the newsletter. That's just not something I would have talked about. And it's something that I don't think this, obviously, common sense tells you that it's not the way to go. Secondly, I never talked about staff sending out or calling on businesses to sell advertising. I mean, we talked about this we had a conversation privately with Joe and Peter, and Matt, you and I disagreed over the concept of me even talking to somebody who I knew in town, a business owner who I knew. Say, by the way, the city has a newsletter, do you ever think about advertising? That's not a hard sell, that's just a suggestion. And the intent of doing something like that is to help them and help the city at the same time, obviously. It's a win-win when you put it in that context. So the context in which you're talking about this is not at all what we talked about when we had our meeting, and it's not at all what I had in mind. So I just want to make that clear, that it's not me that's suggesting those sorts of things. It's just, if you come in contact with somebody who happens to do business in Prospect Heights, or anywhere for that matter, I mean, you don't have to have a business in Prospect Heights to advertise in the city newsletter. So, I mean, it's really pretty open, and if I was to talk to somebody, in fact, I'll give you a scenario. I did talk to a business at the Rock and Run the Runway. It was a new business at the airport. They do training, like, I guess, airplane training. I mean, they can teach people how to fly a plane, and they also do some repairs. And it's a new business, and I talked to them, and I said, oh, I'm welcome to the city. By the way, you know, we do this, we do that. I mentioned PHTV as a potential way to help them get out to the community, and the ribbon cutting would be a possibility also. I didn't really know how much promotion they needed to do, but I said, and we also have a newsletter that offers advertising. Oh, great, they thought that was a wonderful idea. So I emailed them, I got their card, and I emailed them the price sheet for the newsletter. I haven't had any contact with them since. So I don't think that's inappropriate. If you run across a business that is starting out or just occupies some land in town, they should know about these things, and whether they were told about it by the building department when they got their licenses, whatever they needed and so forth, they don't always remember this stuff, so it's just something that I just inadvertently thought about at the time and thought this would be a good thing to tell them. That's all. No hard sell. So I just wanted to make that clear to everybody that that's not where I'm coming from on this.
Okay,
Thank you, Rich.
Thank you, Rich.
thank you.
All right, so I think we've covered advertising then?
Are we
right,
all
so should we-
okay with that?
I think so.
Okay,
So is
good.
the other open item, the expanding the size of the newsletter?
Yes,
that-
expanding the size of the
Mr.
newsletter,
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to just add one more thing, if I may.
yes, go ahead.
As you know, I represent Prospect Heights. I help with the local businesses to join the Wheeling Chamber. The executive director, Mike Putz, has contacted me to figure out a date sometime starting this month that the two of us will be canvassing the Prospect Heights businesses to let them know to join the chamber. They have that opportunity. So whether they're interested or not, it's really just passing information to them. And obviously I could also say, by the way, that's, we as a newsletter for the city of Prospect, that's another opportunity for you. And I have to agree with most people who have spoken here. It's really, I wouldn't say it's any kind of high pressure. It's about letting them know. It's just communicating, here are your opportunities and advantages. I would just leave it at that.
Thank you.
Thank you, it makes
Thank
good
you.
sense.
Again, letting people know is fine. I don't have a problem with that. It is specific targeting businesses to try and solicit advertising. I don't know if that has clarified this a lot or not, but we'll move on. The other issue, and I'll combine this, the size of the newsletter, increasing it to 12 pages, along with whether or not we want other department heads to have a column as well. I'd like to hear from everyone. We can just go down the line, what your general thoughts are. Alderman Cameron?
With 12 pages?
Increasing the size as well as increasing the number of articles. In other words, other department heads would have a brief column in as well.
What other department heads?
Well, like
'Cause don't-
Dan Peterson,
Building
the
department.
police chief,
Okay.
building department, Mark Roscoe,
For Public Works, Building Department, things of that nature.
correct. Do we want to see that? And do we want to increase it? As far as the size of the newsletter, currently, and correct me if I'm wrong, if we have something that is newsworthy, we can currently increase it to 12 pages, and we've done that in the past.
That is
So it's not like we're saying we have to say we're going to limit it. We can do that, and we've done it in the past. But again, I'd just like to hear comments from people regarding this.
Well, if we do add other departments, would we have to, like, a certain amount of letters or whatever per person?
Limiting the size?
Yeah.
I think that might be a good idea. I don't think a lot of people take advantage of that, but it might mean, personally, and this has come up before, when I have a news article like this, or a news pamphlet, I get them from various locations. When I see one that's a whole page, I'm less apt to read that. So for me personally, I don't want all of this extra information, but that's just me. But as far as your direct question, we might have to put a limit on the number of words in a particular article.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if we're gonna add other departments, then we would have to limit that, so.
And increasing to 12 pages would increase the cost. I don't want to bring up advertising again. I think we're done with that, but the cost would increase. Alderman Ludwigson?
I agree. I don't want to increase the cost on it, but, the newsletter is, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, is just supposed to really be telling residents about upcoming events, notify them of, hey, Christmas this year is on a Friday, garbage is going to be postponed. It's not meant to be to do blow-by-blow accounts of council meetings or every single item that comes before us, because I I can't imagine people would want a full-page article about this discussion right now about the newsletter. So I think they would have to raise to a level that's newsworthy, right? And that's what it's called, newsletter, not information, not just, recanting what happened here, recounting what happened here. But my town, we just got, I work in Hillside, little smaller town than this, just got their newsletter. They have one person write an article. Sometimes it's the mayor, sometimes it's somebody else. This past week, they had a veteran write about something, the new act passed by Congress for the health insurance for the veterans. It makes sense to put things out there that are useful to everybody, and the idea that I have to put in there what I talked about at this meeting is not useful. I like the articles that staff puts out about certain things. I think we should do maybe some more, canned things that we can put in about the town, maybe an article about when the town was formed, different things that happened. But this idea that it's the way that we already have the YouTube channel, we have the online viewing of this meeting. There's a lot of information out there. The newsletter is just something that people keep on their kitchen counter that tells them information about what's going on, when things are occurring. So I'm in favor of reducing the size or even eliminating aldermen from writing an article and just having the mayor, or we just pick one person to write about something per newsletter. If anything, go backwards in the size. It doesn't have to be as big as we do.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
Thank you. And as I mentioned at the last meeting, one of the challenges with the quarter newsletter is it's difficult to have it timely. We have things that happen, and by the time the newsletter comes out, it's old news. If something big happens and it's already gone to the printer, it's tough to have this as timely information. Alderman Morgan Adams, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yes, I mean, I respectfully disagree with Alderman Ludvigson's opinion about this. I believe, first of all, the newsletter goes to every resident. And sometimes I believe that many of the residents, in fact, not sometimes, I believe many of the residents, that's the only document that they get that tells them about Prospect Heights. Many of them are not registered with e-news. Many of them don't listen to the meetings. They don't hear them. They don't see them. So the newsletter is unfortunately sometimes the only thing they have that tells them about their city. So I disagree that we should reduce the size. I don't think we should limit the aldermen. I think what was a great idea that Peter Falcone recommended, that we advise the aldermen what articles and subjects are being already made public in that newsletter and are already being discussed, and to avoid those areas and talk about other types of issues that either involve your ward or involve the city or involve things you've done, but to avoid those issues. And I think that was the greatest idea and the best recommendation I have heard about the newsletter as a whole. I really think it was great, and I thank you, Peter. Well, I thought it was a great recommendation.
Yeah, it was for me, because again,
thank you,
well,
Alderman
was I
Dash.
saying, because again, to Pat's point, I think it's more important that, again, as a council, we understand the articles that are going in there, so we don't reiterate what we're already sharing in that article. So Wendy, it doesn't sound like you're in favor of expanding the size of the newsletter, correct?
No, I'm not
Good,
in
right where it's
favor of
at?
expanding it. I don't think we should be limiting the aldermen, though, of providing information.
We're not talking about that tonight, are we?
Well,
We already-
since it was mentioned, I just was mentioning it. As far as the departments, because that was a question that Mayor Dolick asked, I mean, if a department has something newsworthy, certainly they should.
And I
It should
think
be an article, and
I think they have that opportunity now.
And they have an opportunity,
Yeah.
right. So, I mean, I don't think they should be forced every time we have a newsletter to write articles. So I think that what we're doing now, I love it, and again, like I said, the best recommendation was to advise us as to what is going into the newsletter so we can avoid being duplicative, and I appreciate Alderman Dash and Alderman Falcone's recommendation. So I think that what we're doing is great. I don't think we need to enlarge it. If as you say, if there's a need to, on a certain edition because there's a lot of things going on, and a particular articles need to be, you know, made public, and then I think it's fine on a case-by-case basis, or edition-by-edition basis.
Mhm.
But I don't think we should just require it to be larger and increase the cost.
Okay. Alderman Dash, did you have anything else?
No, but clearly I'm not in favor of expanding the size of the newsletter. And again, if any of our staff would like to put an article in, I think that's great.
Thank you. Yeah, and as I said, they have that opportunity now, and I encourage them, if there is something that they think should go out to the public, please do that. I'm not opposed to that, but I'm not in favor of trying to expand this. Mr. Tibbetts, I hate to call on you again. Were there any other bullet points that I'm missing here that you wanted us to discuss before we close up this?
No, I think that's pretty much it.
Okay. Then are we in agreement that, first of all...
Can I say, something, Mayor?
Yes, I'm sorry. Madam Clerk, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just wondering, you know, we were talking about home rule, we're not home rule, you know, how do we raise revenue, et cetera. What if in the future, and I believe this is a serious discussion for the city of Prospect Heights, what if we used a newsletter, if we decide to use it a little bit as a learning tool, you know, put a little bit of information each quarter as a reminder about things that has given our residents the most fear about turning into home rule. We may not have enough room, you know, to discuss this. Perhaps instead of expanding the newsletter, there may be an instance where we may want to put in an insert. Now that's a question to Peter. I don't know how much that would cost. But if at any time, whether it's about home rule or something else that we need to have more room, for example, can we occasionally put in an additional insert? Maybe it's double-sided, but keep it, I don't know if that makes sense, if that's helpful. It, you know, again, useful information, right? So maybe there's other ways we can enhance our need of an extra page or two. That's what I wanted to add, if we
Yeah,
can
thank
think
you.
about that.
And that is a good point, and we've mentioned that in the past, we have expanded the news article when we had that information. I believe an insert in and of itself is more costly than having an additional fold-out. Peter, can you confirm that?
That is correct. It's not impossible. We have done it. It just takes a little bit more elbow grease, so to speak, by the printer, so there is an extra cost involved. It is much easier to either do a 4-page, 8-page, or 12-page newsletter.
Okay, thank you. But yeah, we have done those in the past when we found it necessary. So certainly, if there is information that would be valuable to the residents, I'm all in favor of that. I'm not trying to reduce it or limit it. In an attempt to end this, can we say that the newsletter will basically remain as is under the direction of Peter Falcone? We do have, as was mentioned, the option for other department heads to add anything if they would like. We're not going to try and reduce or limit it. Have we covered this, or is there anything else that needs to be brought up? Then, yes, go ahead, Mr. Falcone.
If I may, sir, just before we stop the conversation, and as always, want all the elected officials to know, and department heads, in fact, we all get newsletters, either at our work, our homes, if some of the staff members don't live here in Prospect Heights. If you see any newsletter you get in the mail that you think something looks good or something's interesting that you kind of want to incorporate into our newsletter, by all means, reach out to me and we'll make that happen. I want to make sure that if there's something out there that would make the newsletter better, that we incorporate.
Thank you, sir. That's a...
And I'd like to add on that, though, because a newsletter can be like alphabet soup. We can open this up and everybody has a different recipe for it, and has to be some central control of editorial content. And as long as, with many other responsibilities listed in the city code, that's my responsibility. So I don't want anybody to think, well, I'm gonna go home and get 10 different things off the internet and give them to Peter, and that's gonna be our newsletter. We have to keep, there's some relevancy to the city of Prospect Heights.
Yes,
And I stand by that.
Yeah, and that's
my job.
a good point and a good good that we are aware of that. If we can move on to the review of the city liquor code, and Alderman Ludwigson, I'm going to have you start off with this since this is kind of your thing that you brought up. Go ahead,
This
sir.
is my version of water for rich. But I think over the past few years, you know, was off the council for, I forget how long it was. It seems like 10 years, but I think it was only a year.
A little over
But,
a year.
you know, in the past 4, 5, 6 years, we've kind of haphazardly have addressed the liquor code through people applying to us and trying to make it fit them, what they had a need for, which is fine. But at some point, you have to kind of take that collection of changes and create some structure to it. So I'm not here today to say we should be charging $2,520 for a Class C1 license or whatever. I'm just bringing up that we need to, you know, we have some instances in our liquor license where a larger, what I would consider a larger, should be more expensive license is the same price as a beer and wine license, and it just doesn't make sense. So in the past, we had a hard time saying, well, how are we gonna add this one and get rid of that one? Now we're out of sequence with our, you know, how we name them, and let's just kind of bring it together, come up with, you know, a way to consolidate this. And after all we've heard, I can't imagine we're gonna hear more from people applying, that there's gonna be more need for unique licenses than what we have already. I just think we need to look to start to gain the revenue we should from the licenses that are worthy of paying more, or should pay more, you know, and kind of just balance it out and get a little more structure, so when somebody comes in here, they know what they're applying for. Because people walk in there and they, yeah, I'll take the 3 a.m. all liquor license, you know, and we're, okay, that's what you applied for, that's what you get, you know. I think there just should be some more.
So Pat, is that something that that you're interested in spearheading with staff, to put a proposal together and then just bring it to us for?
Yeah, we did this a few years
Yeah,
ago.
I
I
mean-
put together a little structure, and it never really went anywhere, so I can find that again, and I'll work with staff to do that. I'm not saying how much we should charge, I just think.
Yeah, but
we have
could
to
you,
make
I
some
mean, could you just propose, again, the different classes, the
Mhm.
hours that would go with them, the fees? I mean, I think you should, I'm assuming that your proposal will likely tie to what surrounding municipalities are doing, how they're structured. So again, I think if you would spearhead putting something together, that might speed the process along in regards to, you know, signing off and making those changes to make our ordinance a little more, you know, button that up.
Mm-hmm, I'll do that.
I think it's a great idea, thank you. Alderman Ludwigson, if you do that, we
Yep.
appreciate it.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be helpful. So we'll keep this on the
Yeah, I
topics
think it'd take
for the
like 3
future.
meetings. We talked about it now, the next meeting, we could look at a first pass of like a structure. The last meeting, we can
Right.
have a first reading of a new ordinance, so we get one more
Right.
meeting to.
Yeah, so it won't be like 6 months.
Right.
We'll,
Right.
we'll move it along. Okay, thank you very much for agreeing to do that. Unless there are any other comments on that, I think we'll just do it just as we discussed here. Item 11C, staggered terms and elected officials. Before I start the discussion, can I just have some clarification from our city attorney as far as, I believe this has to be by referendum, and what is the time limit as far as getting it on the next ballot? Can you go over some of those details for us, please?
Absolutely. So, it does have to go by way of, it's not a wave of the council's magic wand. This is something that requires 10% of the last vote. So I think that was 100, it worked out to be 177 signatures for a petition to get this shown on the ballot. We're talking about a deadline of the deadline for the petition authorizing the referendum to be filed no later than the beginning of January. It would not impact the terms of the folks, the aldermen who are being elected in 2023, but would start a staggered system after that, so.
All right, thank you.
So 2027?
Correct.
Okay.
And I just want to clarify, there was some discussion on prior occasions about which alderman would, you know, would go for the would go first and which alderman would not go first.
Mhm.
Is there any better clarification, John, that you would provide for that, or not at this time?
Yes, so wards 2 and 4 go up for, in 2027, wards 2 and 4 serve a 2-year term. And then wards 1, 3, 5, 4-year, and then start the rotation.
Okay.
Okay.
So the other term, the other elected officials would just stay on their current,
Correct.
so it's
Yeah.
only the aldermen.
Correct, yeah.
All right, is this something that the current council would be interested in pursuing? We could get signatures, but it's something that we would have to think about as if anyone currently is running for re-election or any new members that might be running, they could get signatures at that time or independently. But I just wanted to get an idea of the direction that the current council would like to go on this. Any thoughts?
Well, I mean, the only thing is that it does kind of make sense that instead of just having potentially a whole new council,
Right.
that, you know, you would have some people who, you know, have been here before, and this way there would be some continuity. So I think it's a good thing to do. And since we all have to get signatures anyway, it's not really a burden to get the signatures for this, I mean, for this coming election, which would give us our deadline by January.
Yeah, I agree with the fact that it would prevent, it's not likely, but the event that could happen if we have an entirely new council, that we have no, like, anchor people who are familiar with what's going on. Is everyone else along that line, or do you have a different opinion? Anyone? Alderman Dash?
I mean, I'll get signatures. And if, you know, if we get enough signatures, then apparently our constituents want to put that on the ballot. If we don't get enough signatures, then I guess they don't.
But, Mr. Mayor, to the clerk's point about education, I mean, I've, you know, I hate to be, I sit here like Father Time sometimes, thinking, how did so much time go by, and all these referendums in the past. We've tried to pass a lot of referendums over the years, over the last 20 years. And we understand, I mean, the 7 of us that are here understand why we need it. But it's very difficult to get the people to understand why it should be done and get them to support it, so.
Well, this one doesn't cost anybody any money, though.
It doesn't cost anybody any money, and to me, it's like, okay, we would do it just to say we gave you the chance to have this continuity if you vote yes for it. But don't be surprised if it becomes controversial, because, you know, people might think there's something more to it.
Yeah.
People seem to always
So
think
I might
something
risk
sinister.
I might risk reelection by,
Right.
there's some strategy there, Pat. I like
Right.
that.
I don't
I'll
believe-
take 2 petitions.
But
don't believe anybody here
the
will
good
get
news
back
is that it's
and
not
you
been on,
talk
I don't
7 years
think it's
out.
been a referendum on any other prior ballots, so we don't
I don't
have
think so.
any history of
But-
anything negative.
But
Well-
you're right, people are skeptical about change.
I think
and
we've
afraid of
passed
change.
one referendum in 20 years. I mean, we passed the sales tax, and that was a huge undertaking 15 years ago when that went through. But we've had home rule and you know, other things. But is there any limitation to the number of referendum that can be on a ballot? I've always heard 2.
I think it's 2, maybe 3.
So we run that risk too, because if
It's
you
well, the
read
Park
plan-
District.
They
Park
have one.
District, the school district, I don't know if the school
Well,
district.
school district's going in the fall, right?
In the fall.
And then the Park District in the spring.
Right,
should-
so there's
no-
one other
More
one.
people will come out to vote,
If you
Pat.
read the
That's right.
In the
Fire
spring.
District's newsletter, it is, I think, hinting at that too. So is it a matter
Oh,
of who
they
gets
are
in
too.
first? Is it? Is there an early limitation to filing it?
It's got to be, once the petitions are live, right?
once you're allowed to start circulating.
Yeah.
So once you have enough, if that's a month into it, then you
Day
could-
2, you can
Okay.
file your.
So I think we need to think about that, because
Mhm.
we don't want to run the risk of not getting on there if we really want to do it.
Yeah, and you brought up the issue of educating people. I think sometimes we get into these things like at the last minute, and then we're scrambling to get it done. I think we did that in the past with home rule. It was like a last minute thing, and I think that hurt us. So, yeah, I do think we need to think about this.
No, because
But-
staggered elections is something people do understand. I think they understand the issue of continuity. I don't think it's that complicated. So,
Okay.
I mean, so sure, you might have somebody who has some ulterior motive, paranoia, but I mean, other than that, I think most people would appreciate and understand the issue. I don't think it's gonna be as big a problem, and like I said, there's no history of ever putting it on the ballot before, nor do I think we have any big competition other than Park District for, you know, in terms of another referendum for the spring, so I don't see a problem with it.
Okay. Then what's the direction here? Do we want to move forward? Mr. Attorney, do you think it's advisable to move forward? I know it's not your decision.
That's not a legal decision, that's a policy decision.
Okay.
So I respectfully decline.
Okay, that's,
So it'd have to be personal on someone's decision to actually be the person to write the ordinance, not the ordinance, but the question. Can they just be written in, I hate to say it, plain English, you know? Or is there a standard?
The question that appears on the ballot is already furnished by statute.
Oh, okay.
Shall the city of Prospect Heights adopt a system of staggered terms for aldermen?
Pretty simple.
that is pretty simple. So again, what's
So
the
then,
direction?
so then who would spearhead putting it onto a petition that could be distributed, you know, or solicited for signatures and/or, you know, how does that work then?
I'm happy to, there's obviously several questions that need to be answered. How about if you would all like to shoot me any questions you got at all about all of this stuff, and I'm happy to drop a note to everybody, so yeah, you have it.
I think the biggest question is, you know, how do we put together the petition to be signed? And maybe, you know, maybe you could provide us with the format that we would need to use that would be acceptable and legally appropriate.
Yeah, will do.
Okay.
And just another thing I want to kind of just reiterate is, obviously, if you get it on the ballot, then anytime there's a referendum, the members of the council have got to be careful about how they address or promote
Right.
one side versus another. You got to stay neutral on that.
But you could say neutral, but you could still ask for signatures on it while you're
Fa-
getting your own.
You could, I'm talking, once it's actually on the ballot and,
Oh, once it's
you
on
know,
the ballot.
promoting one side, hey, this should be passed, versus this should not be passed, yeah.
Yeah, but I think as a resident, you can, regardless of whether you're an alderman, you can promote it,
Yes, yes,
as long as it's not part of your official duties.
right. Like, for instance, if you're sitting up here and saying, hey, I think everybody should vote against the referendum, that might be problematic.
Right.
All right, thank you, sir. So I go back to my question, what is the direction here? Is this something that we're going to pursue for this upcoming election?
I think I think the way we left it was that, you know, if John would get us a proper format so that we have the opportunity to use it, then we can all make our own decisions if we want to pass it or have people sign, because it's just a question of getting the number of signatures we need. It's not a question of a policy of the alderman, I don't think. Am I correct, John?
Well, I was just going to say I would prefer to have kind of a consensus decision here. I don't want one person collecting signatures and another one well, it's not so much a matter of that. I would like us to be in agreement of what we plan on doing.
Are you asking the general concept of, does the council want to move
Yes.
forward with a
Yes,
a staggered election?
exactly.
Yes. I'd say
Yes.
Yes, I would say yes.
No time like the
Okay.
present.
Right, I agree with
Okay.
Alderman Dash.
That's what I'm looking for. All right, then we are done with our topic discussions. Next item is the approval of warrants. Madam Clerk?
Thank you. Okay. The total of our expenditures was $361,661.49. We also had wire payments on August 26, 2022 payroll amounted to $167,303.20. The August Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund amounted to $19,815.25. And then on August 26, 2022, police pension funding amounted to $89,353.93, bringing the total warrant amount to $638,133.87 for council's approval, please.
All right, could I have a motion to approve as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Are there any other questions or corrections? If there are none, could I have a roll call, please?
Alderman Ludwigson,
Aye.
Alderman Cameron,
Aye.
Alderman Morgan Adams,
Aye.
Alderman Dolick,
Aye.
Alderman Dash.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Brings us to public comments on non-agenda matters. Madam Clerk, is anybody registered, or is there anyone with us that wishes to speak?
And I don't have anyone registered unless someone wishes to speak.
All right, if there are none, there is no executive session, which brings us to adjournment. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.